Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast with certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno.
Welcome back to the Retirement Evolved podcast. I am Adam Bruno, certified financial fiduciary, and with me, as always, is the one, the only, the lovely, the incomparable, the best Lauren Trolson.
That's it?
Well, I couldn't think of anything else.
Gosh, you could have kept going. This is a great day.
Well, I couldn't said some of the other things either. It's a family show.
True. This is a family show. Absolutely.
That's right. But we do have a special guest today, Lauren.
We do. Victoria, would you like to say hi?
Hello. Thank you so much for having me today.
Absolutely.
Oh, we should be thanking you, Victoria.
Yes.
This is big for us. A lot of our families have questions about this. And can you tell everybody who and what you are, what your role is?
Sure. I'm a professional fiduciary. So that means I serve in the roles of independent trustee, personal representative, or the executor of someone's will. I also serve as agent under power of attorney and as healthcare surrogate. I also happen to be a registered professional guardian here in the state of Florida, and I am a licensed certified public accountant.
So
Woo.
I love all that for you. We are going to dive into each one of those a little bit because that is a heck of a handle. I mean, that must have, and you went to school for a long time, right?
Yes, I did. And I do quite a lot of continuing education.
Oh, my gosh.
Yep. And so what we want to do is obviously, Lauren, we are the Retirement Evolved podcast, and we want to help you navigate your retirement years with absolute confidence. And we want to focus on wealth preservation, smart tax planning, building a truly goal-focused retirement, because you baby boomers out there, we all know it. You save and save and save, and you always forget how to spend and spend and spend. So we're still saving and saving and saving. And somebody is flying first class, and it won't be you eventually, right?
That's right.
That's right.
How much are we transferring to the millennial generation, Adam?
60 trillion over the next 20 years.
Wild.
Yeah, 60 trillion over the next 20 years.
Jeez.
All those millennials and all that money.
Hey, there's some of us that are right on that cusp of Gen X,
Sweetheart, you're almost 40. I don't know.
Oh, my gosh.
I know you don't like to talk about it, but Victoria, I don't know how old you are. It's rude to ask a lady your age, but you don't look a day past 25. So
when we talk about, what we're going to be talking about today is estate planning kind of. And when you read Adam's book, and I'm sure some of you have it already, They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement. If you don't have it, you can go to our website or our landing page, which is www.taxfreefortmyers, spell out Fort Myers, FortMyers.com. And you can download a copy absolutely complimentary, free of charge.
and can we do a shameless plug for the new book?
Oh.
The Amazon best-selling author, Adam Bruno, here on our podcast today. Best-selling author in more than just one category. More than one category. And it was the hottest new read in 6 different categories. First time that's happened.
Whoop, whoop.
Yep. So it is called They Lied. Retirement isn't about growth. It's about control. Because I couldn't think of a longer title. So.
Well, and this is your there's going to be another book, right?
No, this is it. I'm never doing it again. The amount of time and effort this one took, it was just, it was ridiculous. Plus, it would make Kurt really angry. You know what? Maybe we should do another one just to see a look on Kurt's face.
I think you need a trilogy.
That's right.
The They Lied trilogy.
That's what the original plan was. But like George Lucas, I'm running out of really good ideas here.
I doubt that. You always have ideas.
Yeah. But when we talk about, estate planning
and legacy,
the important thing is that a lot of families, they don't know exactly what's going to happen. They get the trust. They feel good about it. They might have a trustee. They might have their beneficiaries. But if you hand that book to one of their kids, those kids aren't going to know what they're doing after that.
Yeah, and if
not that they're kids, but
right. But if you don't have kids, or you chose not to have children, or you've outlived a lot of your immediate family, or maybe you just don't know what to do or know who to trust with your assets.
Ba-dum-bum.
This is what we call the solo ager or no-heir dilemma. And it is a massive blind spot for millions of retirees. So to help us break down how to evolve your plan for this exact scenario, we have our incredible expert in the studio today. So, Victoria, thank you so much for joining us today on the Retirement Evolved podcast. We appreciate that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So you're completely right. A lot of people that I work with run into a major roadblock when it comes to doing their estate planning, because they just don't know what to do about the question of heirs. They also don't know what to do about the question of who to fill those fiduciary roles for them. So who is that trusted person that they can put behind the wheel to make sure their plan is executed on their behalf? So glad that we're having the opportunity to talk about this today, because we want to remove those roadblocks for people so they can get a plan in place and have peace of mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I think, the best word for it is kind of like they freeze and they do nothing. That's the hard part about this. And people look at, a blank line on a beneficiary form, they get overwhelmed. And then they shove the paperwork back into the desk drawer. I call it the junk drawer,
The
right?
financial junk drawer.
With the Chick-fil-A sauce and the ketchup and all that
Yep.
fun stuff. Yep. But before we talk about how to fix all that, let's just clear up some of the definitions. So, Victoria, you're a professional fiduciary and a trustee. For someone who hears those words and thinks it sounds like a bunch of high-level jargon, how do you describe what you actually do on a daily basis? And not that I believe that it's high-level jargon at all, but what do you do on a daily basis?
Absolutely. Happy to explain, because most people get a little bit confused with these terms that we use and really aren't very familiar with the work that I do. So on a day-to-day basis, as I'm administering a trust, settling an estate for someone, acting on someone's behalf as their power of attorney or healthcare surrogate, it means I'm stepping into their shoes. I'm filling that role for them. I'm their professional surrogate, doing all the things that they would normally do for themselves. So if someone becomes incapacitated, who's making those medical decisions for them? Who's ensuring that the proper insurance claims are filed and paid? Who's looking at those bills for copays, for insurance premiums, for all the other things that comprise a person's life? Who's handling that? Who's taking care of the mail, watching over the bank accounts, the investment accounts, talking to the investment advisor about the liquidity needs and the budget for the future, the plan? How is this money going to last for this person's needs? So these are the things I'm stepping in and doing when I'm serving someone during their lifetime. When it comes to the estate side of things, there's a lot of actions that need to be taken. And I think a lot of people underestimate how much work that is, but it's notifying all kinds of account holdings, subscription plans that people have, turning off those subscriptions so that we're not spending money unnecessarily, taking care of property, selling that property if we need to, ensuring everything is documented along the line, communication with the beneficiaries, compliance with all of the regulations that we're up against. So it's a big job. And I think
I could use your help with the subscriptions. I think, Lauren, you have like 5 Netflix accounts, don't you?
I have one.
Like okay, sorry.
I have one.
Okay.
Okay. And you're one to talk.
I know.
So it sounds like you're saying a professional family member for hire.
Love that.
And I just love that description, because it removes the coldness from that corporate title. So let's talk about the people walking into your office or meeting with you. Who are the individuals sitting across from you saying, Victoria, I genuinely don't know what to do with my assets, or who will handle things on my behalf when I need it? Is this strictly for people who are like completely alone?
No, not at all. That's a major misconception that I run into. I work with a lot of solo agers, but even those people who've never had children or perhaps outlived their spouses and siblings often have really rich relationships among their peer group. But recognizing that people in your peer group may not be the best person to serve in these fiduciary roles for you, because at the same time as your needs arise and you have medical issues preventing you from taking care of your affairs, your peers are likely to be facing those same challenges at the same time. Now, I do also work with a lot of people who have plenty of living relatives, but either those relatives, again, are aging, facing their own health challenges. Sometimes we have relatives who are estranged. A lot of people who are in that situation think they're the only ones, but let me tell you, it's very common. Pretty much every family has some complicated dynamics with it. And there's often people in the family who are just incapable of managing money.
That is a huge point. Well, really, they all are, but we see a lot of that on the financial management side all the time. Just because someone shares your DNA doesn't mean they should be running your financial ship, right? I mean, how do I say it, Lauren? Every family's got a Johnny, right? There's always there's always somebody you don't want to give the money to.
Right. And a lot of, even though, just to make a point here, like you could have somebody in your family doing it, it doesn't mean that they know. You listed a, grocery list of things that happen, and all those dominoes, right? That fall when something like that happens. I mean, how do you choose someone, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So you may have a niece or a nephew who you love to pieces, but they can't manage their own car payments. Do you really want to put them behind the wheel of managing your $1 million investment portfolio or complex piece of real estate? So I see clients who have highly successful, incredibly busy relatives also who are perfectly capable of doing these kinds of things. But when we look at somebody who is in the middle of running their own career, probably a demanding job, oftentimes has, children that they're raising as well, they have a busy life and their plate is full already. You add to that they live across the country, that might not be the best person to put behind the wheel. They may just be too overwhelmed by that. So whether you have no family or you just don't have the right family member, a professional fiduciary can fill that void.
Let's look at worst case scenario. If someone is listening to this right now and they don't have a spouse, they don't have kids, and they haven't written a will or a trust because they're stuck, what actually happens when they become incapacitated or pass away? Like, what's the default path?
And I think this is really, really important to just put in terms that everybody understands because, I was dealing with this yesterday. We had a certain family member who came in, certain client who came in. And, I've seen it multiple times, and I think we have seen it multiple times, right? It's really good to just get this out there so that people can kind of understand how that works. Because, you hear words like probate. I mean, in your experience, and I know you're not an attorney, Victoria, but in your experience, what does that look like?
Yeah, so thank you for clarifying that. I'm not an attorney, can't offer legal advice, but I can talk from a practical perspective as a fiduciary and a guardian when I see these situations happen. And unfortunately, all too often, there are situations, like you said, Lauren, that worst case scenario where there is no plan in place. If you don't have a plan, if you've done absolutely nothing, whether you become incapacitated or you pass away, the courts can step in, but they don't have any insight into your personal relationships or what your wishes are. So that means the decision-making during your time of need or for your estate could all be in the hands of someone who you never would have chosen. So that estranged family member, that person you've had a falling out with in the past, that person who's terrible at managing their own finances, that could be the person who ends up with control over your decision-making or control over your estate. And you have no choice in that matter at that stage in time. So the way to have a choice in the matter, the way to ensure that the right people are behind the wheel on your behalf is to get that plan in place in advance. You don't want to leave those decisions to the government.
So this is like the ultimate wake-up call, actually hearing it from you instead of necessarily hearing it from us because you have so much experience with it. I don't think anyone goes to work every day thinking, wow, I can't wait to work hard so my entire estate can end up being in the hands of the government.
Absolutely. It's the opposite of a goal-focused retirement. You lose total control. Your privacy is wiped out because your affairs are going through a public probate court and your life's work dissolves. It's entirely avoidable.
So let's talk about how we can avoid that. On this show, we talk extensively about using a revocable living trust to bypass the costs and delays of probate. How does a trust solve this specific problem for someone without a traditional heir, somebody that, they don't have somebody they can leave it to? Walk us through the mechanics of that.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Certainly, every situation is unique, so I do always recommend that your listeners would go and sit down with a qualified estate planning attorney to talk about their specific needs. But I do see a lot of my clients and their attorneys determine that a revocable living trust is a great solution for them in these situations. So in layperson's terms, we can think about that trust like a cardboard box. When it's a revocable living trust and you're alive and healthy, you hold the box. You put your house in it, you put your bank accounts in it, your investment streams, you're the boss. You're the initial trustee of your trust. And inside that box, you include your rule book. That's the trust that you write together with your attorney. That rule book says, if I get sick or when I pass away, Victoria takes over the box, or your successor trustee, whoever that may be. So when I'm named as your successor trustee, that transition happens instantly. It happens outside of the courtroom. We don't have to wait for lengthy court processes. We don't have to pay all of the fees associated with that. I don't have to wait for a judge to give me permission to act. So things happen much more quickly when we have a revocable trust in place. I simply pull out the rule book you wrote and I follow your instructions.
So here's the $1 million question that gets people stuck a lot of the time. So what if the rule book doesn't name a person to give the assets to? If they don't want to leave it to distant family, what are the creative options you see clients use a lot of the times?
This is where my job gets incredibly rewarding because the conversation shifts from family legacy to values legacy. If you don't have a person, you do still have passions. You have causes. You have a unique story. I love working with clients in these situations and seeing how rewarding it can be for the client to craft a values-based legacy approach. And it can be a lot of fun. The discussion encompasses things like, what brings you joy in life? Do you love animals? Did a local hospital provide life-saving care for a friend or family member? Did a specific university change the trajectory of your career? Your attorney can design your trust so that upon your passing, your assets are liquidated and they flow directly to targeted charities, local nonprofits, or even foundations. So, for example, I recently worked with a woman who was a retired educator and had no living family. Her trust was designed so that her home would be sold and the entire proceeds would establish a scholarship fund at her alma mater for bright students who were in need of financial help. She is so excited about her plan, and she's proud to have a legacy that's going to touch so many lives. And I'm just thrilled to have the opportunity to be a part of making that happen for her.
That is incredible. I mean, it means that your life's work is directly fueling something you spent your entire life caring about. But let me ask you a compliance and safety question. If you leave money to a giant charity or an organization, how do you make sure they actually use it for that specific scholarship rather than blowing it on administrative costs or a fancy office building?
Amen to that. I always get concerned about that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I always recommend people vet the charities that they're giving to. Most of the clients that I work with are dealing with charities that they've already contributed to during their lifetime, but there's still huge power in building the trust. So there's a big difference between when we just have a will in place and when we have a trust. So if we had a will in place and we're leaving the assets to either an individual or to a charity, those assets pass to that beneficiary with no strings attached. Once everything is settled, the beneficiary, the charity, receives the check. They can do anything they want with it. They can use it however they see fit. But if we go through trust, again, managed by a trustee, your fiduciary, if I'm serving as your fiduciary, that's my job to act as your watchdog for your trust. And your attorney can write specific instructions into the trust rule book. Things like, Victoria will distribute 5% of the trust funds to this organization annually, but only if they maintain their no-kill shelter status, or only if 100% of the funds go directly to tuition assistance. So we can attach those strings by means of the trust. Then as your trustee, I would review the charity's financial reporting every year before cutting the check to them. If they violate your intent, I'd have the legal authority to redirect those funds to a backup charity that will honor your wishes.
Wow. So you are quite literally the protector of their legacy, and you're ensuring that the integrity of their goals stays completely intact for years down the road.
Absolutely. I ensure your voice stays loud and clear, even when you aren't able to speak for yourself.
So let me ask you something from a purely selfish perspective. And a lot of our families deal with, generational wealth. If somebody has a need to, let's say that somebody throws $15 million into a trust, and they have the expectation that their kids will receive $250,000 a year, then the grandkids receive $200,000 a year, and they want to just make the legacy last a little bit. You would be the person that would protect that legacy so that they can continue to have their wishes met, beyond the grave a little bit.
Yes, absolutely. And it's a phenomenal way to approach things. If you want multi-generational legacy to be left, I think it's a really good idea to consider having an independent professional fiduciary as your trustee, because what we see happen sometimes when we have family members as trustees is we get really complicated family dynamics. We have one person in the family holding the purse strings, saying yes or no to everyone else in the family. And that can get really sticky and really complicated. It can put a lot more burden on those family relationships than is necessary. So one thing, the way I explain it is, I don't have to be at the Thanksgiving dinner table with these people. Yeah. So it frees me up to honor the intent and the wishes of the person who's created this trust. What was their goal for the long term? If we need to say no to a beneficiary request, we need to say no, because we have that preservation of the legacy in mind, and that's what's important.
What was the name of that movie that I love? The Descendants with George Clooney. Have you seen that movie? They're in like Hawaii, and the whole family has this piece of property that everybody wants to sell, but some of them don't want to sell it because of the legacy behind it, and tracing it up to Hawaii. Yeah. So the interesting thing in there is, George Clooney makes a comment that he doesn't necessarily care about, the people his kids getting this entire chunk of money. Like he believes that he wants to leave them enough to do something, not enough to do nothing. And I always remember that line from that movie, because I think that a lot of our families feel the same way, but it can be really overwhelming. And I don't think a lot of them have thought this way or have had these conversations, but you hear the horror stories of all these different celebrities who died with no estate. So I guess what I want to ask you is, let's pivot to the part of the conversation that I think probably causes the most anxiety, even more so than passing away, right? What happens before you die? So if I'm a solo ager and I don't have a spouse and I don't have children, if I'm in a major car accident, if I suffer a stroke or develop advanced cognitive decline, so who steps in to protect me? I mean, who ensures the mortgage is paid, the dogs are fed, the medical care is high quality or meets the standards that I was expecting? I know that scenario is terrifying if you don't have a built-in family safety net. So, I mean, who does that?
Yeah, so you're tapping into a fear that keeps millions of retirees awake at night. The fear of losing capacity and becoming vulnerable is highly intense, and it's why pre-planning is so vital. This is a big passion topic for me because the value of peace of mind is immense. So I hear a lot of people say, well, when it comes to estate planning, I won't be here for it, so what do I care? I don't need to make a plan in advance. And I always remind people that a really critical part of your estate plan is the agent under power of attorney designation and the healthcare surrogate designation, because those impact you during your lifetime. So if you plan ahead while you're healthy, you can execute those two documents. You can name a professional fiduciary like me as your primary agent or as your backup agent. And then if you can no longer safely manage your own affairs, I'm ready to step into action immediately. It's a completely private transition. I make sure your insurance premiums are paid so your assets are protected. I make sure your utility bills are paid so your lights stay on. I manage your income streams. I coordinate with your financial advisors to ensure your portfolio distributions are optimized for your care. And on the medical side, I consult with your doctors. I hire high-quality in-home care agencies, or I manage your transition into a top-tier assisted living community if that's what's necessary.
So what happens if, and Lauren, you and I were just talking about this, what happens if someone didn't set up those documents and there's a sudden health crisis? Who steps in then?
So if there's zero paperwork and zero family, it becomes an emergency. I also see situations where people do have paperwork, but the people that they've named in their documents from 20 years ago have since passed away or, been diagnosed with dementia or something like that. We end up with no one who's able to serve. So what happens then is someone in the life of this incapacitated person, maybe it's the hospital, a neighbor, a social worker, someone will need to notice the need. And they will need to then take action, hire an attorney, and file a petition with a local court. That's a lot to ask of just someone.
Holy crap. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. My neighbor, I love you, Russ, but I don't know if he'd do that for me. I mean, that's crazy. Actually, I did see him do it for somebody. Shout out to Russ. Russ and Karen, they did that with a neighbor that I had that lived down the street, and they just happened to see that she started to struggle. She wasn't coming out of the house. She was trying to drive her car. So, I mean, but I know that we don't have that many. Well, we have good people in the world, but that's got to be challenging.
Yeah, it's tough. And a lot of people, even in Russ's situation, may see the need and just not know what to do about it.
Right.
Absolutely.
And not realize that there's no one else addressing that need. So oftentimes months and months and months go by before someone really steps in to take action because there's just no one who's the obvious candidate to do this. And so we see, again, the hospital, sometimes we see care facilities do this. But once they start that process with filing the petition in the local court, the court kicks off a competency proceeding, which is in the public record, and it incurs expenses for legal fees, court filings, etc. It also takes a lot of time. They appoint an examining committee of specialists, and if they find that you lack capacity, the judge will appoint a professional guardian to take control of your life.
Uh-oh, that doesn't sound good.
So there are a lot of wonderful professional guardians out there, but my warning to everyone listening is don't leave that choice to a judge. When the court appoints a guardian, you don't get a say in who it is. It's also a public and expensive process with administrative delays. The process is intentionally built to be somewhat slow because they want to protect the rights of the person who's alleged to be incapacitated. So that it is an intentionally slow process. And that means there's delays in making critical care decisions and managing your affairs. And so if you select your fiduciary privately in advance, you can completely avoid the courtroom. You can retain your privacy. You can save thousands of dollars, and you can guarantee that the person running your life is someone you actually handpicked and trusted, and is someone who had the opportunity to know you while you were well. So when I step into a guardianship situation and I'm meeting a person for the first time after they're already incapacitated, it's very difficult to get an understanding of how to improve the quality of their life. What was important to them during their lifetime.
Of course. And Victoria, it sounds like you have to build an incredibly deep personal relationship with your clients while they're healthy. You aren't just looking at spreadsheets. You're just learning how they want to live.
So, to add to that, that personal relationship is important because I'm sure a lot of people, that listen to this, and I know that our families are, so this sounds like something I need, but also they're saying, wait a minute, I'm given a single professional total access to my bank accounts, my real estate, my medical choices. How do I know they won't just steal my money and take off to a tropical island? I mean, what are the checks and balances in your industry to protect consumers, Victoria?
That's an incredibly fair question. And frankly, it's one I would ask myself if I'm hiring a professional fiduciary. And typically I'll bring this up with my clients if they don't ask, because financial exploitation of vulnerable adults is an absolute reality. Ironically, though, the statistics show that the vast majority of financial elder abuse is committed by family members or neighbors, not professionals. It's really sad. But when you're hiring a professional, you are protecting yourself because there are specific structural guardrails in place. So I always recommend that you examine the professional credentials of the fiduciary that you're hiring. If you're working with a fiduciary who's also a registered professional guardian, you have the peace of mind in knowing that they've passed rigorous FBI background checks, fingerprinting, credit checks, and maintain continuing education and bonding.
Oh, so they actually do have to go through a lot of, I mean, that's good to know.
Yeah,
I mean, you have
definitely.
I didn't know that. So they do have to go through like a rigorous, checks and balances then.
Absolutely, and specialized training as well. So, so that's a good start. That's a good foundation. And then in addition to that, your professional fiduciary should carry a really substantial errors and omissions insurance policy. That's a really important one, and they should be willing to provide you with that certificate of insurance if you ask for it. I also recommend that you inquire about the professional background and any other licenses that they carry. So, for example, as a CPA licensed in the state of Florida, I'm held to a high ethical standard, subject to oversight, and I do a lot of continuing education to maintain my CPA license.
It's funny. A lot of people don't love the continuing education in the business, whatever industry it is.
Yeah.
I love mine.
I do too.
Yeah. The other day I just took extra ones just because the classes are so, I'm a big continuing ed guy too. So I could see where that would come in handy.
Yeah, absolutely. I do a lot of it, and it really keeps you relevant. It keeps you on top of what's changing in your field. And so I do think that's really important. And then in addition to things like continuing education, we're also looking at professional fiduciaries. In that role, we are held to the highest standard, and we can be held liable for the actions that we undertake. So if a professional fiduciary mishandled your affairs, they could face massive lawsuits.
Where is that disclosed at? Like, how do they know if somebody has, obviously you have a squeaky clean record, but where can they find if that fiduciary has had complaints against them or anything like that? Is there a way for them to look at that?
It's not exactly the same as the investment advisory industry where there's one centralized website to see those kinds of complaints.
Right.
But you could certainly do a background check of your own if you were concerned about it. Typically, most of the clients that I work with are coming to me through referrals. So it's a relationship situation where I have strong relationships with referral partners that I've worked with over the years, and they've seen my track record. They've seen me in action, and so they're able to confidently recommend me to their clients. But certainly background check is something they could always do. For someone like me with a CPA license, you can look up my license online, and you can confirm the status of my CPA license as well.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what a trust protector is? I've heard that this is kind of a way to make sure that somebody doesn't have, complete unilateral Emperor Palpatine level choices in there, and they can just kind of rule with an iron fist. Like, how does that work? Is a trust protector that role that kind of makes sure that it's fair, or how does that work?
Yes, I often see the role of trust protector used in that way. And so sometimes people come to me and say, I want a co-trustee. I want a professional behind the wheel to do all the things, roll up your sleeve, boots on the ground, take care of everything. And I want a family member or a friend as co-trustee to keep an eye on the trustee. And I often have to explain that's not really the way a co-trustee works. If you have a co-trustee, both are equally responsible for all of those boots on the ground action items, day-to-day work. Now, when we talk about a trust protector, that is someone you can place in an oversight role. So I'll often see people do a professional fiduciary as the trustee, and then a friend or family member in that trust protector role, and that person's job is oversight. They can act as an independent auditor. They have a right to demand accounting records from me as the trustee. And they hold the ultimate superpower, which is they can fire me with a snap of a finger. So if they don't think I'm doing my job well, if they think I'm overcharging, ignoring my clients' needs and preferences, then they can fire me instantly and appoint a replacement fiduciary as trustee.
I love that setup. I mean, that completely solves this, the trust barrier. It separates the heavy, exhausting daily labor of care management from that high-level oversight. Your close friend or CPA or estate planner, they don't have to worry about managing a medical crisis at 2 a.m., but they still hold the ultimate kill switch if the professional steps out of line.
Are you able to kind of like, obviously, depending on how in depth you want to go. But are you kind of able to say, okay, these are the reasons for termination and these are the only reasons, like that trust protector? Like, so they can't just decide they don't like you and fire you? Is there like a way to put some more protection in place? Obviously, it would be like ethical, moral stuff, right? It's not just, hey, I don't like you, I don't like the way you look, I'm firing you, right?
Yeah, so absolutely there are options with that, with the way the trust is written. And that'd be a conversation for your listeners to have with their attorney about what they'd like to put in there. I do often see language that says that the trust protector can fire the trustee for any reason. And frankly, I'm comfortable with that because I don't mind being held accountable for my actions. So if I'm doing my job correctly, I don't need to worry about being fired.
Well, that's what I'm worried about, though. Like, you might be doing an amazing job, and then you get that one family member that just says, nah, I don't like her, she's gone. That's what would worry me, because I would want to protect my fiduciary or my person that I have. Obviously, they went through a long process to select you, to make sure that you're the one that, to me, you're the CEO. Like, if somebody else is the chairman of the board of directors, basically, for the family, there should still be some ground rules in my eyes that says, you listen, this is your lane, this is their lane,
Yeah, so from a practical perspective, I generally would recommend that trust protector is not a beneficiary.
Right.
For that reason, or is not
Makes
someone related to the
that
beneficiary.
has a conflict of interest.
Right. You don't want to have your daughter is the beneficiary and her husband is the trust protector.
Right.
Because you do need the trustee vested with that authority to say no if a distribution request is outside of the bounds of what you've written in your trust. So you don't want a disgruntled beneficiary having that power unilaterally to go opinion shopping among other trustees.
So another elephant in the room we should probably address as we start to roll things out and finish up here. Let's talk about cost, Victoria. A lot of people assume that hiring a professional trustee or a custom fiduciary is kind of a luxury reserved exclusively for the billionaires or the people with massive $1 million estates. Is this accessible for everyday, hardworking retirees who just has a modest home and a standard nest egg?
Absolutely. That's a big myth and misconception in the industry, is thinking that you need to be one of those high net worth individuals. And frankly, I love working with the everyday hardworking retiree. So it can be more affordable really than you think. So every professional fiduciary is going to take a different approach to how they manage their business and what their fees look like. But usually it's going to be based on time spent and a charge for that time. Now, for my clients, when they're healthy and active and we're planning in advance, I do a fairly in-depth process of establishing the relationship with the client on the front end of things, because I believe the most effective way for me to do my job is to hear directly from the clients what's important to them, what their vision is of the future, and what are their values. I also think it's practical to gather information from them, so I have everything at my fingertips that I would need if I got that 2 a.m. call that there's been an emergency. And so with my clients, we do invest some time on the front side of things in building that relationship, building out my files for them. So I have a fee associated with that, and it's really just reflective of the time that I spend during that process. Once we finish that, I call that an onboarding process. I'm bringing a new client on board.
So like an onboarding fee then, a little bit more to get everything set up, and then it's kind of on self-managed mode, or basically.
Yeah, exactly. So it's not a fee for my name to go in your document.
Got it.
It's a fee for that onboarding process to build that foundation, and that really pays off in the long run. And then once I finish that process with my clients, I hope they live many years happy and healthy while they're still in the driver's seat of their life, and I'm on the sidelines. I'm their backup plan. I'm ready to step in when they need me, but they don't need me right away. So I do ask my clients to make a commitment to stay in touch with me and meet on an annual basis so that we're not strangers. I don't want to do the onboarding process and have 10 years go by with no communication.
A lot can change, right?
That makes sense.
Exactly.
A lot can change in a year in a retiree.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Many of my clients in our annual meetings say, oh, I don't have much to talk about this year. Not much has changed. And when I start asking questions, I find out, well,
Oh, yeah.
we sold that property. Someone's passed away, family dynamics.
I could
change.
totally see that happening. I could totally see that. One thing that's interesting to me is when I think about your job and what you do and the precision with which you do it. If I'm somebody who's planning this out, and even if I have to spend a little bit more, right? You always talk about the fee that you're getting for the service you're getting for the fee that you pay. First of all, knowing you, I know that you're going to go above and beyond because that's just the type of person that you are. But second of all, the business side of me says, you know what? If Victoria is not involved, if I don't get this right, probate's going to come in and I'm going to spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars in probate. It's the same way that we talk about our fee. One of the big benefits of working with us is the potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars that retirees could eventually save in taxes, investment fees, whatever it might be. So I'm assuming that when you talk about the cost of what probate is, it's probably, whatever your fee is, it probably provides 10 times more value and 10 times more savings than getting stuck with probate. Am I right about that?
Absolutely. And when you have a situation, whether it's probate, whether it's someone's incapacity, even if it's settling an estate under a trust, but we haven't planned in advance and we haven't had these conversations in advance, oftentimes you end up paying professionals an hourly fee to dig through stacks and stacks of papers and files and find information that they could have easily asked you in 2 seconds if they sat across from you while you were well. So if I were to say, Lauren, what bank do you use for your bank accounts and how many accounts do you have there? You could tell me that pretty quickly. If I got a call in the middle of the night, you were incapacitated and I'm stepping in, then I have to search. I have to start looking and I might miss things and it's going to take a long time. So it's really an investment on the front side. Doing the onboarding process, the annual maintenance is avoiding paying hourly fees later on for me to discover information that you could have told me easily.
Victoria, this has been an absolutely phenomenal conversation.
Yes.
You have taken a topic that can feel incredibly daunting and isolating for a lot of people and turned it into an empowering roadmap. A goal-focused retirement isn't defined by whether or not you have a traditional family tree. It's defined by taking control of your story, protecting your autonomy while you're here, and ensuring that your hard work leaves the exact mark on the world that you intended.
That's so beautifully said, Lauren. So to anyone listening, I would encourage you, don't let a blank beneficiary or blank fiduciary line hold your future hostage. You earned your wealth. You have every right to dictate exactly how it takes care of you and how it takes care of the world for your legacy. And just don't let that be a roadblock to moving forward.
Oh, so well said.
Yes.
Victoria, thank you so much for your time. I mean, Lauren, this was awesome. You set this up, and this is, it's been eye-opening for me. I just I can't thank you enough, Lauren. You do such a wonderful job.
Oh.
I know. I don't tell you enough. We got to start telling Amber more, too. She's getting a little emotional. We got to start telling her she's doing a good job. She's a words of affirmation kind of person. Listen, for everyone listening at home, if you want to take action on anything that we discussed today, we have got you covered. So let's talk about this for a minute. What does that look like? That looks like spending 45 minutes of your time to get yourself even better educated, to sit down and meet someone who does this for a living, to ask your questions. And I'm assuming that Victoria isn't going to rake you across the coals and charge you a big fee for her time just to sit down and get an introduction. So I do want to tell you that I think it's very important, especially for all of our families listening. And Victoria is somebody that I trust completely. I have nothing but good things about it. It took us a while to vet someone and try and find someone to even have this conversation with. So once again, we've got a lot of confidence in her. You can head over to the retirementevolvedpodcast.com.
Nope.
What?
No, it'll be evolutionretirementservices.com.
Oh.
Where you can download the podcast absolutely free.
What happened to our Retirement Evolved podcast?
Well, it's on.
site?
Well, there's a /Buzzsprout. There's a whole thing behind that.
Oh,
so
it's easier.
It's easier.
Got it.
evolutionretirementservices.com. Tax-free Fort Myers spelled out .com. And you can download any episode of our podcast. There's
so
there's got to
many.
be almost like 70 now.
I got some favorites in there too. I think we did it.
yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I think we do a great job with it, just trying to keep it, educational, informative. But you can also go to taxfreefortmyers.com and download my book, They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement. And as a surprise for everyone, I'd say within the next 3 to 4 weeks, the new book will be on there for you to download as well. So both of them will be there. So really excited about that. But you can call us as well, 239-771-8696. We will get all of the information that over to Victoria, and we'll make sure we get that introduction. And I promise you, you're not going to regret that 45 minutes. And remember, all of you started with us with just 45 minutes and talking about what your vision and your goals were for retirement. And from that point forward, we were able to create incredible relationships. I'm so proud to work for all of you, all of the families out there. And I'm hoping that if you're listening and you're not a family that we work with, do not be afraid to just call us and say, hey, here's what's going on. Anybody here can help you. I know everybody likes to talk to myself or Lauren, but anybody here can help you with your situation if we're not available. And until we talk to you again, we want to say God bless and continue the good fight in retirement. And, hug your family today. Tell them you love them, because you never know. Today might be the day.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. Insurance services provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities. Today's broadcast was for informational purposes only and should not be constructed as a specific legal, tax, or financial advice. Always consult with a qualified professional regarding your unique situation.